welcome to our Second Careers podcast, which I am excited to announce now has a name, Find Your Future. I would like to give a really special shout out to two students in my Year 10 Economics and Business class for their creativity in coming up with this name. You know who you are. Without any further delay, I would like to welcome Liam Phelps, a 2014 alumni of Ryan, a past college captain, back. Welcome to our podcast, Liam. Welcome back to Ryan. We've just been on a little bit of a tour around, and you did let me know that you had, been back 5 or 6 years ago, but obviously we've had some great changes since then. What was it like walking around the college?
Very different. Less old buildings, a lot of modern ones. I can still see the places where I used to hang out and think of where I had my classes and those type of things. But yeah, it's definitely more modern. There's obviously been a lot of new infrastructure. The office when I was at school is now the library, and there's a new office, so there's a lot of structural change. But that was lovely actually to walk through again.
Oh, that's wonderful. And yeah, obviously here we're very dedicated to, having great facilities for our students. So it's lovely when past students can come back and see those improvements, and where we're always trying to work, for our students to make it a better experience for them. So let's get into it. Let's go back a little bit in time. So obviously, as I said, you graduated from Ryan in 2014. How long had you been at Ryan for? Was it just like secondary school, or had you been here in junior as well?
I started in grade 3. So
wow.
I was on the wait list for a few years, and then I was fortunate enough to get across in grade 3, and then grown in grade 3 all the way through. So
excellent. And siblings here, or just yourself?
Yeah, I had an older sister, so she would have graduated in 2011, so 3 years before me.
Okay, that's good to know. So when we go back and we have a look at you, obviously from grade 3 to 2014, how would you describe yourself back then? What sort of person were you? What sort of student were you? Who was Liam?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I had to think about this last night before I come on and had a chat to you. I think overall, I was pretty self-motivated and driven. I was always looking to have fun and looking forward to the future. I was fortunate, when I was at Ryan, I spent a lot of time here just doing, obviously at school, but also before and after school, doing extracurricular activities and different things. So Ryan was a really central part to my life. Obviously, my sister being here, my parents were always around the school as well. And Ryan was a really central part in kind of developing who I was at that point in time. I always looked forward to coming to school, and I think I was quite fortunate in that regard. It made it easy to come here. I had lots of friends at school, and some friends I still keep in contact with now. I think back then I was very motivated and keen and happy to try new things and push myself, which I think is something that set me up pretty well going forward.
You mentioned extracurricular. We talk to the students a lot about, stepping outside their comfort zone, trying some different activities, and obviously now we would probably have a lot more extracurricular and different activities they can be involved with at school and outside of school. What do you see as the benefit of those extracurriculars?
Yeah, I think it just made me well-rounded. I think even from a young age, I was participating in things like mime shows and musicals, kind of those arts things, which probably wasn't something that my family particularly was orientated with. It was more sport. I got to do some voice training and public speaking training, which has allowed me to just build the communication skills, which is really good for any part of life you go into. I also then got to play a lot of sport. I'm 70 kilos, ringing wet, but I was playing in the confraternity shield squad and playing different sports through the semesters. Got to go away on different trips and those type of things to represent the school. And I think it kind of made me a more rounded person rather than just staying in one kind of stream of things I enjoyed doing.
And it's really interesting, isn't it, that when either it's in subjects that you may not always think, particularly in those younger years, are a great match with you, or doing those extracurriculars that you are stepping outside your comfort zone, there are a lot of transferable skills to later in life. Can you name some of those skills that you've named a little bit about the communication, which I think is really important, but anything else that you go, when I look back, that actually really, really helped me later in life because I did do those things?
Yeah, I think the communication thing is the thing that sticks out to me most, because when I started doing part-time jobs through university, I was doing barista work, I was doing work at a gym and just an admin role and sports training as I progressed into my tertiary career. And the fundamental of being able to strike a conversation, speak publicly, be able to relate to other people is something that I think opened up a lot of doors for me in terms of my future career, relationships outside of your career as well. I just think that was something that really made me a better person from doing those type of things. Apart from that, I think it gave me a ability to appreciate other people in terms of what different walks of life entail. Like I always played soccer, that was my sport, and I was lucky enough to be decent at it. So I could understand what that involved. But then when you're going to, say, someone who's able to speak a different language and you can't, and you get that appreciation from someone else or someone who can stand on a stage and sing, I think it gives you the ability to reflect on what you can do and things you can strive for, but also things you can do to help get an appreciation what others are able to do as well.
And I think they're really great skills for just living, aren't they? You know, life, being part of the communities that we're in, but particularly when you go into helping professions, you know, they're really necessary skills. So Liam, we might go into just, you know, let everyone know, what is your profession right now and what is your job?
Yeah, so I'm a physio. I work at the Townsville Hospital. So I graduated in 2014, did the 4-year bachelor degree, and then graduated in 2018 from JCU and started at TUH in 2019 as a new graduate.
Okay.
So I've been there for about 7 years, going on 7 years now. The role when you work in a public hospital, you essentially rotate through different areas as a physio. So initially, you know, I worked in the rehab setting for people post like brain injury and stroke, and then I've worked in musculoskeletal injuries, so people who've had joint replacements or fractures or surgeries. I've treated patients from neonatals and NICU all the way through to centurions who are 100 plus years old. So that allowed me to kind of see a bit of everything through the hospital. And then after about 3 or 4 years, I started to specialise to an area where I work in now, which is the emergency department. So that's what I do day to day.
Wow. So you certainly, you saw all different facets of the spectrum through those few years.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it was a really good experience. And then as you get a bit more, you find what interests you most, and then you kind of tailor what you want to do to that.
When we've talked about Liam back then. How would you describe Liam now in comparison? Similar, or you can see some real growth areas?
I think overall I'm similar. Like I definitely have I feel like I have a zest for life. You know, I'm keen to experience things, have fun. I think I'm definitely like life's too short to be stressed, so I try and minimise that as much as I can and maximise what I do day to day to make my life enjoyable. And part of that's picking a career that I like and enjoy. I don't mind going to work every day. Overall, I don't think I've changed probably too much. I still try and be obviously like a good person, generous with my time, and try and, you know, lead with the values that I think what a good person should be.
No, that sounds like you're on the right path there, definitely with the career you've chosen. And I also just wanted to make a little mention too to a comment you said just a little bit earlier, how you're decent at soccer. I've seen you play. I feel it's a bit better than decent, hey?
Well, I probably was a little bit better a few years ago. A couple more injuries are starting to catch up with me, but yeah.
What about if we go back to like, say, 10, 11, 12, what, you know, when you get to that age where you really start honing in a little bit more on, okay, the end of school is coming, what were you starting to, you know, research a little bit more, get some more information on, I suppose, explore?
Yeah, I think I did a bit of work experience from about grade 10 onwards, which helped me to kind of tailor where I wanted to go. I'd had some involvement with physios just through sporting injuries and those type of things. So initially when I kind of did some work experience, it was in a private clinic, so mainly like musculoskeletal type injuries, which is similar to what I do now, but was very different to what I did at the start of my career. But that gave me kind of an interest in the body, helped me return to things I like to do. And that's where I kind of tailored my year 11 and 12 subject selection towards that kind of health industry. I knew I wanted to be in health of some description. I always enjoyed helping others. So then from that kind of point onwards, I tried to tailor what I chose and what I did to target towards that tertiary education.
So was it always physio with the work experience, or did you look at some other allied health areas too?
Mainly physio. I think I spent a few days with like podiatrists and OTs just as part of that clinic's kind of practice, because there was a multidisciplinary clinic, but I always kind of wanted to be physio. At that point in time, it was fully like sports physio. I'm like, I'm going to be next Cowboys. Physio was, you know, where I was at, which is everyone tends to do.
I hear that a lot as a Chris advisor,
yeah. So yeah, and then from there, like I was thinking about what I preferenced, you know, for my subjects, and I tried to keep it pretty broad. I think I did accounting, biology, chemistry, math B, math C, English. So just tried to keep things pretty broad so that if I wanted to switch and go to something like engineering, I had enough of the prerequisites or those type of things.
So you would have had Janelle for accounting?
Yes.
Oh, Janelle's still here?
Is she?
She is still,
yeah,
and she's still an accounting whiz, absolutely.
Yeah, she's a legend.
So obviously when I always talk to the students about, particularly in grade 12, when they get out there and when they're going down that next pathway, you know, that's the last piece of the puzzle, is it? You're in there, you're either sitting in that lecture or starting that apprenticeship or starting that job, whatever it is. and then you're getting a bit of an idea of, is this the match? So when you started physio at JCU, did you have that moment to go, I'm with my people, I'm in the right place, this is where I need to be, or was there any doubt there?
No, I was pretty solid from the get-go in terms of my mindset. Like I was definitely very committed to it, and I think I was also like aware of the fact that like if I started a degree, I kind of wanted to finish it. I didn't want to try and collect degrees and part degrees. I wanted to try and give it a crack. And the hard thing when you're studying is there's not always the relatability to what the job looks like. So the first couple of years, you're kind of in the weeds a little bit in terms of you're learning the basic skills without actually applying it to patients in real life, which is actually where you get your job satisfaction from. So I think there was some struggles in the initial part in terms of seeing where the theory kind of led to. But as you develop through the degree, it did give me some practical application of those skills. And then that kind of ignited the fire of why I wanted to be a health professional and want to be a physio.
And, we again talk to students a lot about that sometimes even though you're in the right pathway, you're not always going to enjoy every single moment. You're going to have some doubts, particularly in those first couple of years when it is setting that foundation. What were some of the skills that you did have that maybe you did develop in school that you were able to use to go, no, we keep going here. We keep going. We don't give up. We can get through this.
Yeah, I think like being consistent through the semesters at university was probably something I learned at school in terms of like from a young age doing homework like every night, even if it's small amounts, and then to grade 11 and 12, like studying readily through the semesters or the terms so that when you get to exam time, you're not like cramming essentially. So I think that was something that allowed me to be consistent. I think just like showing up consistently as well, like university, when you get out into the real world, you have your license, you have a choice if you want to go to your lectures or to your practicals. That's not something which is necessarily enforced on you. So I think the consistency and the keenness to attend and be present was something that probably put me in good stead through my degree and into my professional life as well. And again, I think like just being keen and happy to learn, happy to ask questions when you're not sure or if you don't feel 100% confident, as I think having that like internal desire to learn makes you curious, and that helps you to stimulate your brain to help continue to like push through when things are a little bit boring or dry or so forth.
I think, Liam, you could literally come to Ryan and be a teacher or a careers advisor. You're saying everything that we tend to say to the students.
Well, I did think about being a teacher at some point, but yeah.
So it's really good to hear people who've obviously been through the school system can now connect all that, to the real world and their real life and their real, profession that they've gone into to see that there are connections there. It all does make sense eventually. I suppose that's the biggest thing that we try and tell students is there is a point to everything. You may not see it now, but there is benefit and point and focus to everything.
Yeah, and no matter what you do in life, the core skills of being able to communicate, do simple like math, being able to think critically are all things that you learn at school. It doesn't matter whether you go and be a tradesperson, go to university, work a retail job. There's still those skills that are transferable regardless of where you think your academics is at. And you never know what will happen in a few years' time. You may change your mind and pivot. But as long as you've got those core skills, I think it sets you up for whatever you want to kind of do.
Yeah, I think sometimes when we're younger, we don't realise just how much those skills that we're developing can go across, countless different platforms. It's not just one pathway that we can transfer those across many.
Yeah.
You talked about work experience. We really encourage our students to do work experience. Probably a little bit, it may be different. I'm not sure. Back then, was it mandatory? Did you have to do it, or was it like it is now?
Yeah, I think it was something that was driven. I think I had to contact some people. My parents were pretty supportive of that in terms of getting out and trying to do a little bit. I remember having a careers advisor at school where you'd talk to with your subject selection and going through your AP and those type of things. But I don't remember it ever being mandatory to attend. But it was definitely something you can go to work experience and you can enjoy it, you can think it's okay, or you can hate it. And all three of those outcomes are okay. I think it's important to rule things out. I know if I went and tried to work on a house, after a couple of hours I would have tapped out because I'm just not made for that. So I think there's benefit to just trying things out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very similar system now. It is about, you being interested and you wanting to have that experience, and then we support them fully in that across 10, 11 or 12. But yeah, I think you're right. we say it to the students all the time, it doesn't matter if it's cementing or it's taking something away, that's just as beneficial,
Yep.
you know. At least you know that now, and I've definitely had, you know, in the 5 years I've been here, a lot of students who were adamant it was a pathway and come back from work experience and been like, oh, that was not what I expected. And now I'm not sure. And I'm like, that, and they're very down about it, but I'm like, that is great because now you know.
And school's the right time to do that. Like ideally, if you can do that in grade 10 to 12, that eliminates you going into a tertiary course and those sort of things. Obviously you have to pay HECS and those type of things. Of course you start and then don't finish. So I think it's worthwhile if you can rule things in and out to some degree early.
Now you talked a little bit about obviously your careers education. I would assume we've come a long way in that 11 years. You know, careers education in schools now is a very, it's a focal point, you know, because we know that ultimately we are transitioning these students, you know, to the real world and to a pathway. What did it look like back then? Like you mentioned a little bit about subject selection, but was there a lot around the, you know, I've just got this person that I can come and chat to and we can do a little bit of careers counselling on what's my pathway, what am I looking at?
Yeah, it was hard for me to recall coming to do this today. I was thinking about it. I'm sure there was a careers counsellor. I think we had a few like careers nights where they would go through how your like OP is structured, how to get your subjects to align to kind of where you want to go. I think it was probably more tailored towards people who weren't interested in going to university. So there was like a tech NQ kind of style where people would go to discuss those type of things. I don't remember it being particularly like something that I accessed a lot. I think that was probably because I was more having those discussions with my folks rather than at school.
And I think that's a really important point too, that even though we have a lot of support systems in place in schools, you know, around careers education, and obviously the students playing a huge role in it, but family, you know, we can't dismiss, you know, that role and how important that is as well, that you have those people or person to go home to of a night time on the weekends and just be talking it through and making sure that, you know, whatever your pros and cons about certain things, you know, that you're able to verbalise that and have discussions on it.
Yeah. Like for me, my sister and I were the first two of our family to go through university. So it was a completely new process to my parents, but I think they invested a bit of time to try and learn so they could help me through that as well.
And I think it's always interesting, you know, first in family going on a pathway that maybe hasn't been seen in that family before. I think also too, depending on where you come with your siblings, you know, what they've done in the past. I always look at my children and think for my youngest, it was probably that little bit easier because it's like I've seen two older siblings go through it. I know this system. I know the pathway, you know, a little bit more maybe than someone who's the first. But when I look at my daughter, the first one, it's like, bit more pressure, bit more, this is a bit unknown.
Yeah, that's right. It's a fear of the unknown until you kind of get into it. But my sister was a big help with that as well.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think too, you mentioned when you were talking about working at the hospital, obviously you've had one employer over the last, was it 7 years? Yep. But obviously you've had a lot of variety too in that sort of setting because it has the capacity to show you all different types of physio areas. What made you settle on emergency?
Yeah, good question. So the last 2 years I've been made permanent down there, and I think it's when someone comes to the emergency department, like the role of the physio, it's probably like half it's like older people who've fallen over, so it's like mobility assessments, giving them mobility aids to make sure they're safe to go home. The other half of it is kind of like fracture management, upper limb and lower limb injuries and fracture management, and there's a small caseload of like vestibular or dizzy presentations that we see. And so when someone comes to the ED, they come in a very heightened environment. No one wants to come to hospital to start with, especially they're in pain. They're either, if they're dizzy, they're unwell. For some reason, they're not happy to be there. So I enjoyed the pace of the environment. Like there was a lot of pressure on EDs to be able to move patients in and out as appropriate. But being like a person who can take the time to listen to someone, understand what's going on with them, provide a treatment plan that's like tailored to them, helps them to like de-escalate, helps them feel comfortable and in control of their healthcare. And depending on their pathway, if someone's coming to hospital, you can set them up on a really nice path through hospital, or if they're going home, you can make sure that they're well supported in that decision to go home. And I liked the fact that it's kind of fast paced, but I get to use a lot of different skills in that area. It's kind of a general role essentially because we work across all the domains of being a physio. So.
Do you see yourself staying there for a little while?
Yeah.
Into the future?
Yeah, I think so. I enjoy the job. I have a really good team that I work with. There's plenty of like areas where I can progress from here. Currently I work in like a secondary contact perspective. So when a doctor picks a patient up, they refer to a physio. I'm currently doing some upskilling to work as a primary contact physio. So essentially when people present with broken ankle, broken wrist, the physio picks them up from the waiting room as like a doctor substitution model, which is, again, kind of expanding my skills, and there's a nice kind of 2-year training pathway for that.
How important is it to, and I think we all know the answer to this, but again, you know, it's being able to let students see the reality of what we often talk to them about school, that idea of continually upskilling, continually learning, continually expanding their mind and their horizons. How important is that for you?
Yeah, it's something that's ingrained when you do our course, and particularly that's one of the reasons I chose to work in Queensland Health, because of the structured like supervision and professional development. If I go a period of time without challenging myself, I get a bit stale in the workplace. So from the first year I started, I think in the first year I did like 8 courses. I spent like $6 or $7 grand on different PD through the first year, and I've continued that through my degree. And currently now I do my work, and then after I go home, I still usually tend to do probably 3 to 5 hours of study during the week outside of it to help progress my career. I think that just is like a bit of intrinsic motivation to try and do that. It's not something that's necessarily expected, but again, like what's ingrained into me is to continue to work hard and be committed if you want to, improve yourself. So that's why I like to do it.
And I think it's showing also too, like, the importance of goals. Like, it's not always just about that people are imposing goals on us in our work setting, but we have our own internal goals. We've got things that we want to achieve. We want to go certain places. So I think that's what you're highlighting as well in what you've just been saying. And yeah, I think, again, if we can let the students know the importance of setting up those skills now, they carry you through, and it makes it the journey a little bit easier as you get older, because those skills and those habits are already in place. Yeah,
and I think like when you find something you're passionate about, that becomes easier. You become motivated to do what you like doing and enjoy doing. So I think, it's something I talk about when we have students come in, like tertiary students or school students come to the hospital to our physios, and I supervise them. I say, you've got to find your thing that you enjoy doing, and that will help with your motivation, because you have a long time working. So you want to try and, obviously you can pivot and move, and that's fine, but if you can try and find something you enjoy early, it's helpful.
And we talk to the students again a lot about the fact that now, we know they will change. They are the generation that won't fear that. So I'm very particular, and I talk about, what's that first pathway you're going to explore when you leave school. It's not about it being right or wrong or the one that you'll do forever. What's that first one that you want to explore? But yeah, it's a mantra we have here a lot about choosing on what you love, what you enjoy, strength area, passions, all of those sort of things, because we do work for a long time and we want it to be in areas that we feel a real connection to. Otherwise, that's when we have a lot of difficulties, and we experience those difficulties.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. So what types of things have informed your decision-making along the way? Like, obviously, are there people in your life who've been a really great support and that's been really great with your decision-making, or has a lot of it all come from within?
Yeah, I think part of it's come from within, but I think like you don't know what you don't know. And as you get a bit older, you start doing things in your career or outside of your career, and you have to lean on others for support. Like, obviously my folks are a big help. My wife's a big help with that as well. We've kind of grown up together. So we've kind of learned from each other and with each other. I think like within the career spec, I tried to identify people early in my career who I thought were exceptional, or like, experts in their field. And I tried to align myself to what they were doing, and try and adopt the habits that they were displaying. So I'm fortunate in the facility I work at, we have a lot of high level professionals who are very committed to their work. And I think that's something that early in my career and currently I'm trying to kind of almost sponge off that and look at what they're doing and not copy it, but identify the traits of what they're doing and try and implement that into what I kind of do.
And I think that's a really fantastic strategy to say, whether it's internal to your workplace or, people external to that, who are those role models? What would I like to be? Who would I like to be like? And what do they display and how can I work toward that? So, yeah, I think that strategy, I think you can't go wrong with that type of strategy.
Yeah, that's what I figure. And sometimes it is nice to have people as a sounding board outside of your profession as well. It can give some clarity to your situation. And a lot of the time, like, being a human, not everything is unique. Usually someone has been through what you're going through. So it's always nice to have people like external to your day-to-day, which can help give you some kind of feedback as well.
Do you have a plan for your career? Like, have you got like 5-year plan, 10-year plan, anything that's guiding you a little bit, or are you leaving it to just see what occurs and what gets offered and what gets presented?
I've probably been pretty intentional the last couple of years in terms of having probably a 3 to 5 year plan. Like, as I mentioned before, there's like a nice pathway to like the next step in my career. The first 3 years was just like consolidating knowledge, getting experience, and then I kind of wanted to tailor. So I spent the last couple of years kind of tailoring towards that. And then now I'm in the stage where I've consolidated my role that I'm currently in and now looking to what's next. I probably don't have any more plan at this point in time past kind of like 5 years, because I think by the time I finish the training and then get comfortable in the next role, that's probably where that will end. And then from there, it's a decision of to whether I want to remain like a clinical like physio, or whether you move into a more of a managerial role. And I think I'm probably not in the mindset to consider that at the moment. I've always seen myself as a clinician first, and that's probably what I'd like to do because you get the more of the patient contact. So I think like from a career perspective, I'm probably like limited to probably 5 years of where my thinking is. I'm definitely not like taking it as it comes. I'd rather be a bit more on the front foot. And that's probably the same as like general life too, in terms of like setting things up outside of work and thinking about what I want to do. Like I've probably pretty structured in terms of like I sit down every 12 months to run a bit of a plan, which is kind of a 12-month plan, but also like a 5 to 10 year plan as well to kind of set up what I want to do outside of work as well.
Yeah, and the reason I ask that, because I think that's been a bit of a changing face around careers and professions, you know, in the last little bit of time. That once upon a time, probably definitely when I left school, which obviously was a long, long time ago because I'm 1,000 years old, it was really about, you know, having those plans in place and, you know, having the 5, the 10 and beyond sort of thing, and really probably being quite regimented with that and cementing those in. Whereas I think now it's about, yes, we need goals. We know the importance of goal setting, but to have that adaptability, because things get presented and things show that you're not expecting. And I know that probably when I look at my career starting off as a social worker, the majority of what's occurred in my time, and now, you know, moving into a teaching space as well, and obviously careers advising, I couldn't have predicted probably 3/4, you know, probably the first 10, 11 years where it was the real relationship, family relationship counselling. Yep, I predicted that, and some management obviously coming in there too. But the rest, I know I could not have predicted probably the majority of those opportunities that presented themselves. So, yeah, I think that that's a really interesting time that we're in. It's about the importance of goals, but, yeah, adaptability, flexibility, and being aware that things might present themselves that you just have not even considered.
Yeah, and I think like I'm probably a little bit different to most in terms of that. Like I'm probably a little bit more old school, and it's probably a bit more of my upbringing. Like my dad's been a police officer from 16 years of age, so he's been in the same system the whole time. So that's probably a little bit ingrained into me, but I do see it with my work colleagues and even my wife with her career. Like there's a little bit more like as an employee, there's a little bit more kind of adaptability and flexibility with your career, and you're not necessarily stuck in one spot. And that's probably just a change of how the world has kind of changed a little bit. And I think that's a good thing. I think as long as you have a bit of a plan and you kind of you continue to develop yourself, the more you develop yourself, the more those opportunities will eventuate.
Absolutely. And the more that you're open to them, the more that you see.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your wife just for a minute, because she is also alumni of Ryan. So what does your wife do? What pathway has she taken?
She's a vet. So she, out of school, did a year of biomedical science and then used that as like a bridging across doing 5 years of vet. So she was in uni for a couple of years longer than I was, and then started working. So she works just locally here. She's like a GP vet essentially at the moment, but she's just done like a 2-year course over like it's in Australia, but going to the UK to do some like surgical practice as well.
Oh,
so
that's
she's
really exciting.
A bit of a budding kind of vet surgeon for little animals. So.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. It's just always wonderful to hear, you know, where past students are right now, what they've done, you know, because even though people move on, you know, there's obviously a lot of staff here and people who still remember students, and, you know, it's just lovely to hear what they're up to and what they've been doing.
Yeah.
So as we're getting, you know, down to some of our last questions today, what do you know about yourself now that you think, I didn't know that back then? It was probably there back then, back at school, but I just really wasn't aware of it.
Yeah, I think the biggest part of my self-growth in probably the last 2 or 3 years is just opening my eyes up to a little bit more to the world in terms of like I tended to think things were very like kind of black and white, yes or no, in terms of I've probably realised things are a little bit more grey now, and there's a lot more things that happen in general life which can, I'm not sure how to describe it, but like not everything is a yes or no answer. Not everything is concrete. So I've probably had to broaden my mindset to that a little bit. So yeah, I think that's probably the main thing. I've like identified some things like I'm probably not a super empathetic person. I'm probably a little bit more like logical, my thought processes, which can be challenging in terms of my role in healthcare, but also like roles in relationships and those type of things. I think my empathy bucket gets like diminished very quickly. So that can sometimes mean that like outside of work, I lack empathy in other things. So I think there's constant like self-growth things you pick up. I think as you get older, you get a bit more reflective of that. I think in my first probably 5-6 years out of school, I was just like, get through university, start working, head in the ground. But now I've kind of looked up a little bit and thought about, how do I conduct myself? How do I do these things? And that's probably the main kind of self-growth things I've thought about.
And I think that, it doesn't matter what pathway we go down. You're talking particularly about empathy, and I can understand where you're coming from with having a counselling background, that you can get depleted of that, in a day very, very quickly. But I think, no matter what pathway, there's different skills, different areas of us that are being used up very, very quickly. So I think it's about, like you said, having that awareness to go, when I get home, I just need to know that that was a big thing today, and that did get depleted very, very quickly. So I have that awareness, when I'm with my friends, with my family, with my partners or whoever, that, I just need to be aware of. But I think for everyone, they probably have those different areas that are getting depleted in the day. They just may not be always so aware of it.
Yeah, and I think like there's different levels, like different roles have different types of stress and so forth. Like I look at my job and generally it's like a busy role but not a super, super stressful role. Whereas like I look at my wife, she's like doing surgery, very front facing all of the time. It's probably a bit more of a busy and stressful. So I think just learning how other people and myself adapt to normal life stress is probably something I've been like a little bit more reflective of recently.
No, that's wonderful. Look, I can't thank you enough, Liam. It's been so good talking to you over the podcast today. I think that, it was amazing just listening to you give, as we're chatting and going through that conversation, so much of what you're talking about is what we try and instill in the students here. And it's just really, really helpful when you have alumni, definitely, but, just people who have gone through the school system, gone into the real world, are in their professions, be able to reflect back and say, no, all of that is really, really helpful. Yeah. And these things are really, really important. And what people are trying to support you with, there is a point to it, there is a reason, and you'll really appreciate it somewhere down the track. So thank you so much for coming in today. I know it's your day off. So I really, really appreciate that on a day off, you've come back to Ryan to help us with our podcast today. We wish you well in the future, with every pathway you go down and everything you do. And we look forward, to seeing you back here at maybe some of our alumni events. And certainly we've got some big ones coming up in the next few years. So we'd love to have you back then.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks very much, Liam. Bye.